If you're struggling to get project management interviews, it is likely due to one of these two reasons. And so in this video, I'm going to show you tactically what you can actually do to increase your chance of success of getting an interview and eventually getting the job. And getting the interview is arguably the most important step in this whole process, because if you can't get an interview, no matter how good you are of a project manager, how qualified you are, how many skills you have, if you don't have an opportunity to actually demonstrate that in an interview, there's no chance that you're actually going to get a job. So we need to fix this first, make sure that you can actually get interviews so that you can present yourself in your best light and then get a job. So what are the two reasons that might be preventing you from getting interviews for project manager roles? Number one, it could be the applicant tracking system, that your resume is not passing the applicant tracking system. This is the first step in the process when you actually submit your resume on the portal, and then it gets scanned to see if you're going to be a good fit for that job. So I want to actually show you here how I would actually approach it to make sure that your resume is passing the applicant tracking system. So in order to check if my resume is showing up well on the applicant tracking system, I would actually use ChatGPT to tell me how my resume is performing from an ATS perspective. So I actually have a prompt here that I've created that you can use, and I'll leave this prompt down below in the description so you can use it for yourself. I'm actually going to take this prompt and put it into ChatGPT, which is just basically asking ChatGPT to act like a recruiter, act like an ATS evaluator, and then we're going to get it to evaluate our resume from an ATS perspective. So now that ChatGPT has read my prompt and it knows what I needed to do, it's going to give me a score of how I'm ranking on the ATS. It's going to give me a job fit analysis and just some other improvements that it might have for my resume. So now that this prompt is locked and loaded, I'm going to bring in my resume. And at the same time, I'm also going to drop in the job description so that I can evaluate my resume against the job description to see how I would rank from an ATS perspective. So here's the job I found on LinkedIn. I'll just copy the entire description over into ChatGPT, and then I'll have it give me a response based off of my resume and based on the job that I want to apply for, how well I'm doing on an ATS perspective. So you can see right off the bat, it's given me a score of 72%. My ideal target would be at least 85% or higher from an ATS perspective. And one of the best parts about this prompt and about this kind of method is that it also shows you the keywords that are missing from your resume that both the ATS, the automatic system, the applicant tracking system will look for. And then also once it passes that, the hiring manager is going to look for these same words and see, hey, does this guy know SQL? In this case, this job is looking for someone who has some experience with SQL, someone who has experience with online advertising, data analysis, Excel modeling. And so if I don't have these things on my resume, I may not stand out as a good candidate for this job because I'm missing a lot of key requirements. And so by going through this process, looking at how I rank on the ATS, looking at what keywords are missing from my resume, and then also getting clear advice on how I can update my resume so that it aligns better with the applicant tracking system and the specific job that I'm applying for. I can update my resume and then apply, being a lot more confident that my resume is well suited for the specific job that I'm applying for. And the best part about this prompt is that it gives you a final verdict on what you should do, if you should take any action to improve your resume, or if it thinks you're okay and you can continue applying with the resume that you already have. So definitely take advantage of this prompt, take advantage of ChatGPT, and have your resume go through this process to see if it's passing the ATS scan. Now, if your resume is passing the ATS scan and you are already getting an 85% or above, or the prompt that I'm giving you is telling you that your resume is already good, you don't need to make any changes, and you're still not getting interviews, then it's likely failing in step 2, which is a human screen. In other words, the process to actually get an interview is first it goes through the ATS, and then from the ATS it goes to a real person like a recruiter or a hiring manager will review the resume and then see if you're a good fit to be called in for an interview. And typically the recruiters and hiring managers, they're only spending 10, 15, 20 seconds scanning your resume, looking at the most important information and making a quick judgment call to see if they should call you in for an interview or not. And so this is why it's so important to make sure that your resume is completely error-free, easy to read, aesthetically beautiful, easy on the eyes, that you're using the right fonts, that you're using the right font sizes, the right bolding, the right formatting. These are all the little details now that can literally mean an interview or not an interview. So what I want to actually do here is show you guys examples of resumes that might look good on the surface but actually don't work in the real world. And typically when a hiring manager or recruiter is looking at these resumes, and they see these types of issues, they immediately discard that resume and they don't call that person for an interview. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here, and you want to make sure that you don't have these same problems on your resume. So the first example here is a resume here for a project manager, and you can see they've got some errors here. They're very common. They should be using the past tense here. They've written proposed solution. They should have written proposed solutions and built teams to solve the number one cause of customer complaints. They should be talking in the past tense, but they're talking as if it's in the present tense. They've got incorrect spelling on their resume. So they misspelled the word percent here. They're not capitalizing their resume, and they're using incorrect grammar. These are all little things that can mean that you're not called for an interview. The hiring manager is going to say, hey, this guy can't even have a clean resume without errors. How can I expect him to do the job correctly without errors? So that's what's going through their mind. Here's another example. Again, wrong tense, typos in the resume. They're using a passive voice instead of an active voice. They're inconsistent with the punctuation. They've got a period in one bullet, but in the other bullet, they don't have any period. And they've got more typos in this resume as well. So this is where you need to pay attention to detail and make sure that your resume is free of all these types of little errors. And the best part is you just need to go through it once, spend an hour or two to really go through it in detail and make sure that all these little things are addressed, pass it off before you actually use it to apply for an interview. And just put yourself in the shoes of a hiring manager or recruiter. If you came across this resume and you notice these kind of little issues on the resume, it might be a red flag for you, because you might be thinking, well, if I'm going to be hiring this person and they haven't taken the time to really go through their resume and make it pristine, make it excellent, how can I trust them to do the job that I'm hiring for, do it the best way possible and take the care and attention that I want them to take on the job? Here's another example. You can see right here, side-by-side comparison. A lot of people like to go for resumes that might look visually appealing. They like to put images and have all these different sections and interesting type of formatting. But in the real world, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the ATS, and it actually doesn't work that well for a real person who's going to be scanning your resume. On the left here, they're able to quickly go through, okay, they see your name, they see your experience, they see your education, they see any other things that you want to mention. And so it makes it a lot more easy to read and a lot more digestible to get the quick information that they're looking for. Here's another example of a resume that you should not use for, especially for professional type roles as a project manager. This might work for maybe a graphic designer type role, but if you're applying for a project manager and you have a resume like this is not going to fly. You need something a bit more professional. Here's another resume that's probably not going to be well received. And I want to just pause for a second and see if you can notice what the issue is when you're looking at this resume. The issue is that everything is center aligned. This is very difficult to read. It is not easy on the eyes, and it is just something that I don't want to keep looking at. This is actually making me a little stressed out and giving me a little bit of a headache. Everything should be aligned to the left and not center aligned like this, because again, it makes it much more difficult to read. Here's another part of a resume that may not be well received by the hiring manager or the person looking at your resume. And again, I'm going to take a pause here to see if you can notice what the issue is with this resume. The issue here actually is that they have multiple short-term projects here. So March to May, May to August, and then January to present. And so this might come off as a red flag to the hiring manager to see, why is this person moving around every few months? This person is probably going to do the same when they join here. We're looking for someone who's going to stick around for the long term, or at least commit to 1 year. And so in situations like this, it's probably better to just have your most recent experience and not even show those little short-term 1 or 2 month projects that you did, because they may raise a red flag. Now, you could bring those up in an interview, or you could mention them as like a one-line bullet somewhere else on the resume, but to show it like this, it might come off as a red flag that this is a person who moves around quickly and may not want to stick in one place for too long. Now, here's another example of a poorly formatted resume. Again, this person did not pay attention to detail. They have things that are not properly aligned. The email is not properly aligned here. They have extra space between the icon for LinkedIn and then the actual LinkedIn link. And these types of little details are what will stand out to a hiring manager and prevent you from actually getting an interview. Here's another resume that might look good from your perspective. Oh, you chose a fun little font for your resume, but these are fonts that are not going to help you in getting an interview. You want to stick to the common fonts like Times New Roman, like Arial, Helvetica. these are the fonts you want to focus on. And in fact, you can just search up on Google, what fonts to use on your resume and stick to those fonts, because those are proven fonts that are easily readable, have enough spacing between them, that are not confusing, or that don't introduce unnecessary distractions when you're reading the resume. So make sure you focus on the font that you're using, the spacing that you have in your resume, the formatting. These are all little details that will help you make sure that you are not removed from consideration for a project manager role. And then lastly, having too much personal information on your resume is also not a good idea, right? Here, this person has included an About Me section, including personal information about their daughter, about their children, about their habits and likes and dislikes. This is probably not the area where you want to reveal too much personal information about yourself. Maybe in an interview, if these things come up naturally, yeah, you can definitely bring it up. But on a resume, you want to keep it completely professional and just hint on things that you like to do, things that your interest at a high level. You don't need to go deep into the fact that you love poker or the fact that you love to engage in online political debates. You want to leave those things out of your resume, and you want to make sure that you keep it professional. And then, like I said, if in an interview these things come up and you want to showcase a little bit more of your personality, by all means, give it a go. Now, if you feel like your resume is ATS friendly, it is human readable, it is aesthetically pleasing, it's beautiful, that you've already locked those two aspects of the resume down, and you're still not getting interviews for project manager roles, then I would ask you to take a step back and consider maybe the roles that you're applying for do not match up well with the experience that you have on your resume. So take a step back and see, where is your resume well suited? Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? And actually apply for roles where you are a good candidate, and try to get more experience under your belt, so that when you are applying for those higher level project manager roles, your experience can help paint the picture that yes, you can actually do this role that you're now applying for. And so I would recommend that you apply for roles that are well suited for your experience level and your level in where you're at in your career. And then also I would just recommend, now that we live in a world with AI, and AI is doing, writing your resume, writing your cover letter on the side of the person looking for a job. Also on the other side of people who are looking for candidates to hire, they're also using AI to find candidates, and almost we're now losing this human element in hiring people, because AI is writing your resume, AI is looking for candidates, and it's all automated. I would actually argue now that there's an opportunity here to get a bit more creative, to reach out to hiring managers and recruiters through direct email or direct messaging through LinkedIn or through InMail, and connecting with them on LinkedIn and trying to find their email and reaching out to them personally. Like, these types of strategies now are more important than ever, because no one is reading resumes anymore. No one is talking to real people anymore. Everything is just happening via AI and via automation. And so a way to stick out, a way to stand out, is reach out to these people personally on LinkedIn, give them a call, try to meet up with them for coffee, connect with team members that are on the same team for the hiring manager, ask them about the role, find creative ways to get in and get an introduction from someone who's already on the team that can maybe introduce you to the hiring manager and then get you an interview. So you need to get a bit more creative now, especially in this world of AI where everyone is using ChatGPT to write their resume, to apply for thousands of jobs at once. And then on the other side, AI is being used by hiring managers and recruiters to actually find candidates. You need to find a way to be more creative. And the way you can do that is by adding a bit more of that human touch, that human element to the job search process. So there you go. If you're struggling to get interviews, tackle the ATS first, then tackle the aesthetic side of the actual resume. Make sure it's readable, and then from there, make sure you're tackling the right jobs that are well suited for your experience, and then also get creative with the job search process. So there you go. Hopefully you like this video. Like and subscribe. And if you're interested in learning more about project management and actually growing into a top 1% project manager, just know that I have a community of over 700 plus aspiring project managers who have trusted me to teach them and train them on project management. So I would invite you to also join and take advantage and get the behind the scenes experience of what it's like to be a project manager, so that when you do go into your next interview, when you do get your next job as a project manager, you are able to demonstrate your confidence, your knowledge, your poise, and able to get the job, and not just get the job, but also demand a much higher rate, because you're going to come across as a much more professional, much more adept, and much more seasoned and sharp project manager. If nothing else, I'll see you on the next one.